What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to make another foldable, this time looking at subgenre characteristics. So we've discussed that there are two genres. There's fiction, there's nonfiction. Now we're going to look at the subgenres underneath that. We're going to look at 5 different fiction subgenres today. And then inside of our foldable, we're going to take notes on each one as far as what would categorize a certain book or text as this subgenre. So we're going to look at fantasy, historical fiction, mystery, realistic fiction, and science fiction. All right, so make sure you cut it so that you have 5 flaps so that they all open. And on the inside of the flaps, we're going to go to the other board and we're going to take notes on what should go under each one. So hopefully by the end of this, you should have a better understanding of how to identify which subgenre a certain text would fall under. All right. So we come to the big board. Now, the first one we are going to look at is fantasy. All right? All right, so all of this information will go under the fantasy flap, which should be the first flap in your folder. So the fantasy subgenre contains elements or things that are just not realistic. So, contains things that are not realistic. So some examples of things that you could see in a fantasy text could be talking animals, magic powers, or people with magic powers, wizards, fairies, things of that. A lot of times it's set in a medieval universe. So Shrek, for example, that's what I mean by medieval universe. The setting that you see in Shrek, those medieval time periods, knights, castles, kings, they're slaying dragons, things of that nature. And fantasy texts can possibly involve possibly they include mythical creatures. The main one being like unicorns, things of that nature. So these are all characteristics or elements of a fantasy text. Now, there are more than this, but these are just the ones that we're going to focus on for right now. All right, so the next one is historical fiction. So historical fiction is centered, what's the word? Around the idea or the basis or the foundation of the setting or the story is centered around an actual event. So I don't know if I can hold my marker right. story is centered around a partially historical event or situation. All right. So this could be a story that takes place about someone trying to stop the Kennedy assassination. Well, the Kennedy assassination was a real thing. It was a real event. It actually happened. But a person going back in time isn't. And so this is historical fiction. It's based on the actual event, which was the build-up and the execution of the Kennedy assassination. But a historical fiction type novel could be someone going back in time to try and stop it. Also, it is, or kind of like this, it's set in a historical period. So everything has to line up with the historical idea that is being portrayed in this historical fiction setting. All right. So again, the main thing about historical fiction, it's a fiction story with some actual truth to it, a historical history element. All right. So the next one we're going to go to is mystery. All right. And so for mystery, a mystery novel often includes a couple, if not all, of the following. All right. Often includes a couple of these, if not all of them. A level of strangeness, something's going on, it's creating a strange mood or tone, a puzzling event or situation, this is oftentimes what the story is being built around, whatever that puzzling event or situation was. There's an unknown. Something in the story is unknown. That's what makes it a mystery. A mystery is an unknown concept. A crime, solving a crime. A lot of times the crime is the unknown, and that's the unknown needs to be solved. All right, so you could have solving a crime. It's sometimes centered around a person investigating. So this would be the detective in a situation where it's a crime. So the story would be centered around that detective because they're investigating wrongdoing. Um, or it can be centered around a person. It can be centered around an individual with secret information. Sometimes there are some mysteries that are written from the person who's guilty, the person that committed the crime. It's written from their point of view. And the secret that they have is that they know they did it. And so, like I said, mystery subgenre type texts have Maybe not all of these, maybe not all of them, but sometimes have at least two or more. Okay? So now we're going to move on to realistic fiction and then science fiction. And again, this is what should be going under the tabs, under the folds in your folder. All right, so realistic fiction, stories that take place in modern time. That's what makes them realistic. Stories that take place in a modern time, and the characters involved, these characters are often going through things that could actually happen. So they're involved in events that could actually happen. Okay? So they're taking place in a modern time, and they're going through events that could actually take place. And that's what makes it realistic, because the events aren't made up. They're things that could happen. Now, does that mean they will? No, but it could. And the last one that we're going to look at today is scientific or science fiction or sci-fi. And science fiction often revolve around, obviously the word science is in it, so it deals with science. So it revolves around science, and technology of the future. All right. So revolves around science or technology coming from the future. It involves true theories of science. So there are some theories within the scientific fiction realm that are real, that come from the science field. The settings are often and this isn't everyone, but often they include a couple of these. The future. So the setting is often in the future, in space. So those are your two big ones that you see in science fiction. A different world or planet. Sometimes the setting is in a different universe. All right. So, like I said, these are not all the subgenres of fiction. You still have some that are not in your foldable, but these are 5 of the relatively big ones. All right. So again, the 5 that we have fantasy, historical fiction, mystery, realistic fiction, and science fiction. And so there are some that I didn't touch on in today's video that are not in your foldable. Horror, adventure, things like that. But these are the 5 big ones. These are the 5 that I want you to know. We are going to go in depth into some of these, but that is for a later date. You do have an assignment on Canvas. Reach out to me if there's one of these that you don't understand, if there's something that we've gone over before this that you don't understand, or if you don't understand your assignment. And as always, have a great day.